I've always believed that trust is the foundation of a marriage, a delicate thread woven through years of shared laughter, quiet moments, and promises whispered in the dark. For 15 years, Claire and I had built something I thought was unbreakable. We met in college, two idealistic kids with dreams bigger than our bank accounts. I was studying architecture, sketching buildings that would one day touch the sky, while she was immersed in literature, her nose always buried in some novel or poetry collection. Her passion for words was what drew me to her, those hazel eyes sparkling as she recited lines from Neruda or Dickinson, her voice like a melody that could calm any storm in my head. We were young, broke, and wildly in love. We married at 24, in a small backyard ceremony with fairy lights and mismatched chairs, surrounded by friends who believed in us. Our life together wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We settled in a quiet suburb of Portland, Oregon, in a craftsman-style house with creaky floors and a garden Claire tended with an almost spiritual devotion. I worked long hours at an architecture firm, designing eco-friendly homes for clients who wanted to feel progressive without sacrificing luxury. Claire taught English at a local community college, her lectures on Austen and Woolf inspiring students who'd never thought they could love books. We had a daughter, Lily, who was 10 now, with her mother's eyes and my stubborn streak. Our evenings were filled with board games, movie nights, and Claire's off-key singing while she cooked dinner. I thought we were happy. I thought we were whole. But looking back, I see the cracks I missed. The late nights when Claire said she was grading papers but came home smelling faintly of wine. The way her phone buzzed more often, her fingers quick to silence it. The subtle shift in her laughter, like it was meant for someone else. I chalked it up to stress. Her department was underfunded, and she was always juggling deadlines. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I was enough. It was a Tuesday in October when the thread began to unravel. The air was crisp, the leaves a riot of red and gold outside our office windows. I'd finished a project early and decided to surprise Claire at the college. I hadn't done that in years, brought her coffee or flowers just because. I stopped at a cafe near campus, picking up her favorite lavender latte and a blueberry scone, her guilty pleasure. The campus was alive with students, their backpacks slung low, voices carrying snippets of debates about philosophy or the latest Netflix series. I felt a pang of nostalgia for our college days, when Claire and I would spend hours in the library, stealing kisses between the stacks. Her office was on the third floor of the Humanities building, a cozy space cluttered with books and framed prints of famous authors. I knocked lightly, expecting to see her hunched over papers or typing furiously at her laptop. But the door was ajar, and when I pushed it open, the room was empty. Her desk was a mess of papers and sticky notes, a half-empty mug of tea still warm to the touch. I frowned, checking my watch. Her schedule was predictable, office hours from 2 to 4 on Tuesdays. Maybe she'd stepped out to the restroom or a colleague's office. I set the coffee and scone on her desk, scribbling a quick note. Asterisk surprise. Thought you could use a pick-me-up. Love, Nate. Asterisk. As I turned to leave, I heard voices outside, low, intimate, the kind that don't expect an audience. I froze, my hand on the doorknob. The hallway was dimly lit, and through the crack in the door, I saw Claire. She was standing too close to a man I recognized, Professor Daniel Harper, a history professor known for his charm and a reputation for lingering too long at faculty mixers. He was tall, with salt and pepper hair and a smile that seemed to promise secrets. Claire's head was tilted, her laughter soft and unguarded, the way it used to be with me. His hand brushed her arm, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned in, her fingers grazing his sleeve as she said something I couldn't hear. My stomach twisted, a cold knot forming where warmth used to be. I wanted to step out, to confront them, to demand answers. But my feet felt cemented to the floor, my breath shallow. They moved down the hall, their voices fading, and I stood there, clutching the edge of her desk, the lavender latte mocking me with its cheerfulness. I don't know how long I stayed, but when I finally left, I didn't take the note with me. Let her see it. Let her wonder. That night, Claire came home late, her cheeks flushed, claiming a department meeting ran long. Lily was already in bed, and I was in the kitchen, nursing a beer and pretending to read a client brief. She kissed my cheek, her lips cool, and chatted about her day. Some student's breakthrough essay, a colleague's bad joke. I nodded, my responses mechanical, my eyes searching hers for something I couldn't name. Guilt? Deception? But her gaze was steady, her smile practiced. I wanted to ask about Daniel, about the hallway, about the way her laughter sounded like it belonged to someone else. But I didn't. I told myself I was overreacting, that I'd misread the moment. Trust, I reminded myself. Trust is the foundation. The next few weeks were a slow descent into doubt. I became hyper-aware of Claire, her phone, her schedule, her moods. She started staying late more often, citing syllabus revisions or student conferences. Her texts became shorter, less affectionate. When I suggested a date night, she'd smile and say, "Soon, Nate, I promise." But soon never came. I started checking her phone when she was in the shower, something I'd never done before. The guilt of it gnawed at me, but the need to know was stronger. There were no obvious signs, no explicit messages, no incriminating photos. Just a string of texts with Daniel, casual on the surface but laced with a familiarity that made my skin crawl. Asterisk, lunch tomorrow? Asterisk, he'd write. Only if you bring that book you mentioned, she'd reply with a winking emoji. A winking emoji. Claire never used those with me. I tried to talk myself out of it. Colleagues have lunch. Colleagues joke. But the memory of that hallway, of her leaning into him, played on a loop in my mind. I started noticing other things. Her new perfume, sharper and more expensive than her usual floral scent. The way she'd linger in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair or choosing earrings she hadn't worn in years. She was radiant, more vibrant than she'd been in months. And it wasn't for me. One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. Lily was at a sleepover, and Claire was in the living room, grading papers with a glass of wine. I sat across from her, my hands clasped to stop them from shaking. "Claire," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "Is there something you need to tell me?" She looked up, her pen pausing mid-sentence. "What do you mean?" Her tone was light, but there was a flicker in her eyes, a momentary tightening of her jaw. "I mean about work, about anyone." I hated how vague I sounded, how weak, but I couldn't say his name. Not yet. She laughed a little too brightly. "Nate, you're being cryptic. Work's fine. Same old chaos." "Why?" I searched her face, looking for a crack in the facade. "You've been distant. Late nights, new perfume, new energy. I just want to know you're okay. That we're okay." Her smile softened, and for a moment, I thought she'd confess, that she'd break open and let me in. But she reached for my hand, her touch warm but not reassuring. "We're fine, Nate. I'm just swamped. You know how it is. I'm sorry if I've been off. I'll make it up to you, okay?" I nodded, wanting to believe her, but the knot in my stomach tightened. That night, as she slept beside me, her breathing soft and even, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I thought about the life we'd built, the promises we'd made. I thought about Lily, her trusting smile, her belief that her parents were a unit, unshakable. And I thought about Daniel Harper, his hand on Claire's arm, her laughter echoing in my mind. The next day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Tom, a gruff ex-cop with a no-nonsense demeanor. I met him in a diner across town, far from our neighborhood, where no one would recognize me. I told him everything, the hallway, the texts, the perfume, the late nights. I gave him Claire's schedule, Daniel's name, and a photo of them from a faculty event I'd found online. Tom listened, his expression neutral, jotting notes in a small black book. "Give me a week," he said. "I'll get you answers." That week was torture. Every smile from Claire felt like a lie, every touch a betrayal. I went through the motions, work, dinner, bedtime stories with Lily, but my mind was elsewhere, imagining scenarios I couldn't unsee. Claire and Daniel in a car, in a hotel, in some hidden corner of the campus. I hated myself for thinking it, but I couldn't stop. When Tom finally called, his voice was clipped. "Meet me tomorrow. Same place. I've got what you need." We met at the diner, and he slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were photos, timestamps, and a detailed report. My hands shook as I opened it. The first photo showed Claire and Daniel at a cafe, their heads bent close, her hand on his. The next was outside a motel, Claire's car parked in the lot, Daniel's arm around her waist as they entered a room. The timestamps were from the past month, some during her late meetings. There were emails, too, forwarded from a burner account Claire didn't know I'd found. They were careful, never explicit, but the subtext was clear. "Missed you today," Daniel wrote. "Can't wait for Thursday," she replied. I felt the world tilt, my vision narrowing to those photos, those words. Tom watched me, his eyes softening slightly. "I'm sorry, man," he said. "You sure you want to keep digging?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure of anything anymore. "Keep going," I said. "I need to know everything." As I drove home, the envelope burned a hole in the passenger seat. Claire was at the college, Lily at school. The house was empty, silent except for the hum of the fridge. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the photos, the reality of her betrayal sinking in. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there, numb, the manila envelope a weight in my hands. I thought about our wedding vows, about the life we'd promised each other. I thought about Lily, who deserved better than a broken home. And I thought about revenge. Not the fleeting kind, born of anger, but something colder, sharper, something that would cut as deeply as her betrayal had cut me. I didn't confront Claire that night, or the next. I needed time to plan, to let the pieces fall into place. She'd lied to me, broken our vows, and thought she could keep it hidden. But I wasn't the man she thought I was anymore. I was someone new, someone forged in the fire of her deception. And I would make sure she felt every ounce of the pain she'd caused. The days after receiving Tom's envelope were a blur of calculated restraint. I moved through our life like an actor playing a role, smiling at Claire over breakfast, kissing her forehead before bed, all while the images of her with Daniel Harper burned behind my eyes. Every touch, every word from her felt like a blade twisting deeper, but I didn't let it show. Couldn't. Not yet. I needed to be methodical, to let the plan take shape in the quiet corners of my mind. Revenge wasn't just about confrontation. It was about precision, about dismantling the illusion she'd built around her betrayal with surgical care. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, not just in a moment of anger, but for years to come. I started by gathering more evidence, not because I doubted Tom's findings, but because I needed to understand the full scope of her deception. Tom was thorough, tailing Claire and Daniel discreetly, documenting their meetings with timestamps and locations. He sent me updates every few days, photos of them at a wine bar, their knees touching under the table, a grainy shot of them walking in a park, her head resting on his shoulder, a receipt from a bookstore where they'd spent an hour browsing, her laughter captured in a candid shot. Each piece was a shard of glass in my chest, but I studied them like blueprints, mapping the contours of their affair. They were careful, never meeting too publicly, always cloaking their time together in the guise of work or chance encounters. But they weren't careful enough. I began to dig into Daniel Harper myself, using skills I'd never thought I'd need. I created a fake social media profile, posing as a distant colleague from a conference years ago, and followed his accounts. His life unfolded in curated posts, lectures at the college, weekend hikes, a dog named Rufus he doted on. He was divorced, no kids, with a reputation for charming students and faculty alike. His ex-posts were polished, full of witty historical quips and photos of old books, but there were hints of arrogance, a man who thrived on attention. I found a pattern in his posts that matched Claire's late nights, gaps when he was offline, times that aligned with their meetings. It was like assembling a puzzle I didn't want to see completed. At home, I kept up the facade. Claire noticed nothing, or if she did, she hid it well. She'd come home with stories about her day, her voice bright but her eyes distant, like she was performing for an audience she didn't fully trust. I played along, asking about her students, her classes, even Daniel, testing her reactions. "How's that history guy you mentioned? The one with the book club?" I'd ask, casual as I chopped vegetables for dinner. She'd pause, just a fraction too long, then smile and say, "Oh, Daniel? He's fine." Always going on about some obscure war or whatever. Her lies were seamless, honed over months, and I marveled at how easily she wore them. Lily was my anchor, the one thing keeping me from spiraling. Her laughter, her questions about the world, her insistence on reading Harry Potter with me every night. They grounded me. I looked at her and saw Claire's eyes, her dimples, and it both broke my heart and fueled my resolve. Claire's betrayal wasn't just against me. It was against our daughter, against the family we'd built. I couldn't let it slide, couldn't let her walk away unscathed while Lily grew up in the shadow of her mother's choices. I started laying the groundwork for my plan, small steps that wouldn't raise suspicion. I opened a separate bank account, funneling small amounts from our joint savings. Nothing she'd notice, but enough to give me options. I consulted a lawyer, a friend from college named Rachel who specialized in family law. Over coffee in a nondescript cafe, I laid out the situation, keeping my voice low. Rachel listened, her expression a mix of sympathy and professionalism. "If you're thinking divorce, Nate, you've got a strong case for fault-based grounds, depending on the state. Adultery's still a factor in Oregon, though it's tricky. You'll need solid proof." I slid her a copy of Tom's photos, and she raised an eyebrow. "This is thorough. You're serious about this?" "I'm not sure what I'm doing yet," I admitted, "but I need to know my options." She nodded, jotting notes. "If you go this route, we can push for primary custody of Lily, especially if Claire's distracted by this." She tapped the photos. "But think carefully, Nate. This kind of thing, it changes you. Make sure it's what you want." I didn't want a divorce, not really. I wanted my wife back, the Claire who'd danced with me in our tiny college apartment, who'd cried when Lily was born, who'd promised to love me through every storm. But that Claire was gone, replaced by someone who slipped away to meet another man, who lied to my face with a smile. Divorce felt like surrender, but revenge felt like reclaiming something she'd stolen. My plan began to take shape, not just to expose her, but to make her feel the consequences in a way she couldn't ignore. I wanted her to lose something she valued, something that defined her. Claire's career was her pride, her identity outside our family. She'd worked hard to become a respected professor, her office walls lined with awards and letters from students. Daniel, too, was entrenched in academia, his reputation built on charm and intellect. I decided their careers would be the battlefield. I started by planting seeds of doubt among their colleagues. Using my fake profile, I sent anonymous tips to the college's HR department. Vague but pointed. Concerns about inappropriate relationships between faculty members. Look into Professors Claire Bennett and Daniel Harper. I didn't expect immediate action, but I knew it would start whispers, make them uneasy. I also contacted a former student of Claire's, now a journalist at a local paper, and fed her a story about ethical lapses in the humanities department, hinting at favoritism and blurred lines. I was careful, never mentioning names directly, but the college was small, the gossip mill hungry. At home, I tested Claire's boundaries, pushing just enough to see how she'd react. I suggested we host a faculty dinner, inviting Daniel and others from her department. Her eyes widened, a flicker of panic before she recovered. "Oh, that's sweet, Nate, but it's such a busy time. Maybe in the spring." I didn't push, but I noted her discomfort, the way her fingers tightened around her wine glass. I started leaving my own phone out, open to innocuous texts, inviting her to check it. A subtle way to mirror her secrecy, to make her wonder if I knew something. She never took the bait, but I saw the glances, the way her shoulders tensed. Tom's next report was a bombshell. He'd managed to get audio from a bug he'd placed in Daniel's car. Nothing illegal, he assured me, just a recorder left in a public lot. The conversation was brief but damning. Claire's voice, soft and teasing. "You're terrible. You know that? If anyone saw us." Daniel's laugh, low and confident. "Let them. I'm not hiding how I feel about you." Then silence, the kind that spoke louder than words. I listened to the recording in my car, parked in an empty lot. my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. It wasn't just an affair. It was intimacy, a connection that mocked everything I thought we had. I channeled my rage into the plan. I contacted a hacker through a friend of a friend, someone who operated in the gray areas of the internet. I didn't want anything traceable, just a nudge, access to Claire's work email, Daniel's too. The hacker, who went by Shade, was expensive but discreet. Within days, I had a trove of emails, not just between them but with students, colleagues, administrators. Most were mundane, but a few stood out. Claire recommending Daniel for a prestigious conference. Daniel pulling strings to get her a guest lecture spot. It was subtle favoritism, the kind that could raise eyebrows if exposed. I saved everything, building a dossier that could unravel their professional lives. I also started weaving a narrative at home, preparing Lily for what might come without alarming her. I spent more time with her, taking her to soccer practice, helping with homework, talking about trust and honesty in ways that felt natural. Sometimes people make mistakes, kiddo, I told her one night, tucking her in. But the truth always matters, okay? She nodded, her eyes serious, and I wondered how much she sensed, how much a 10-year-old could pick up from the tension in our house. Claire's behavior grew erratic. She'd snap over small things, dishes left in the sink, my shoes by the door, then apologize profusely, blaming stress. One night, she came home late, her blouse slightly wrinkled, her hair mussed. She claimed a student had spilled coffee on her, but the lie was flimsy, her eyes avoiding mine. I didn't call her out. Instead, I smiled, poured her a glass of wine, and asked about her day. She relaxed, thinking she was safe, but I saw the cracks in her composure, the guilt she couldn't quite hide. The final piece of my plan came together when Shade sent me a draft email, crafted to look like it came from Claire's work account. It was an apology to the department chair, admitting to an inappropriate relationship with Daniel that had compromised professional ethics. It was careful, not explicit, but damning enough to trigger an investigation. I didn't send it, not yet. I wanted to time it perfectly to maximize the fallout. I also had Shade prepare a similar email from Daniel's account, confessing to using his influence to favor Claire. The emails would be sent anonymously to the chair, the dean, and key faculty, with copies of their private exchanges attached. I met Tom one last time in the same diner to finalize details. He looked at me, his eyes searching. "You're playing with fire, Nate," he said. "This kind of thing, it doesn't just hurt them. It'll change you, too." "I'm already changed," I said, my voice flat. "She did that." He nodded, handing me a flash drive with the latest evidence. More photos, more audio, a timeline of their affair stretching back nearly a year. I paid him, thanked him, and drove home, the weight of my plans settling over me. I wasn't just going to expose Claire and Daniel. I was going to dismantle their world, piece by piece, until they understood the cost of their betrayal. That night, as Claire slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, the flash drive hidden in my desk drawer. I thought about the life we'd had, the love I'd believed in. I thought about Lily, asleep down the hall, and the future I wanted for her. And I thought about the emails, waiting to be sent, the first domino in a chain that would bring Claire's carefully constructed lies crashing down. Tomorrow I'd set it in motion. Tomorrow she'd learn what it meant to lose everything. The morning I decided to pull the trigger on my plan, the air in our house felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. Claire was in the kitchen, humming softly as she poured coffee, her hair still damp from the shower. Lily was at the table, sketching in her notebook, oblivious to the tension that had become my constant companion. I watched them, my wife and daughter, and felt a pang of something I couldn't name, grief, maybe, for the life we'd lost, or resolve for what I was about to do. I kissed Lily's forehead, told her to have a good day at school, and nodded at Claire as I grabbed my keys. "Big day at work," I said, my voice neutral. She smiled, unsuspecting, and wished me luck. I carried that smile with me like a shard of glass, sharp and fragile, as I drove to a coffee shop across town to set everything in motion. I'd chosen the timing carefully. It was a Thursday, the day Claire and Daniel often met after her office hours. according to Tom's reports. The college was hosting a faculty symposium that afternoon, a high-profile event with administrators and visiting scholars in attendance. It was the perfect stage for maximum impact. I opened my laptop, connected to the coffee shop's Wi-Fi, and logged into the anonymous account Shade had set up. The draft emails were ready, one from Claire's account, one from Daniel's, each confessing to their inappropriate relationship and ethical lapses. I'd attached select emails and photos from Tom's dossier, carefully curated to avoid anything that could trace back to me or the hacker. The recipients included the department chair, the dean, and a handful of influential faculty known for their zero-tolerance stance on misconduct. I hovered over the send button, my heart pounding. This was it, the point of no return. I clicked, and the emails vanished into the ether, a digital guillotine falling. I didn't expect immediate fallout. Bureaucracy moves slowly, especially in academia, but I'd planted enough seeds to ensure the whispers would spread. I drove to my office, pretending to focus on blueprints while my mind raced. By noon, Tom texted me, "Campus is buzzing. HR's already called a meeting." I felt a grim satisfaction, the first flicker of something other than pain in weeks. I kept my phone close, waiting for Claire's call, her text, anything to signal she knew the walls were closing in. But nothing came. She was either blissfully unaware or too practiced at deception to let it show. That evening, I picked Lily up from soccer practice, her chatter about a new goal she'd scored filling the car. I listened, nodding, but my thoughts were on Claire. When we got home, she was in the living room, grading papers, her face pale but composed. "Rough day?" I asked, setting my keys on the counter. She glanced up, her eyes flickering with something. Fear, maybe, or suspicion. "Just long," she said, her voice tight. "Symposium ran over, and there's some drama in the department." "Oh," I kept my tone light, chopping carrots for dinner. "What kind of drama?" She hesitated, her pen tapping against her notebook. "Just gossip. You know how faculty can be." She forced a laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. I nodded, letting it drop, but I knew the emails had landed. The symposium would have given the faculty plenty of time to whisper, to speculate, to judge. Over the next few days, the cracks in Claire's facade grew. She was jumpy, checking her phone constantly, her responses to me clipped or overly cheerful. I played the oblivious husband, asking about her day, offering to make dinner, all while Tom fed me updates. The college had launched a formal investigation, prompted by the anonymous emails and pressure from a senior professor who'd received the dossier. Claire and Daniel were called into separate meetings with HR, their interactions now under scrutiny. The journalist I'd tipped off published a vague but pointed article about ethical concerns in humanities department, hinting at favoritism and blurred boundaries. It didn't name names, but the campus was small, and the rumor mill did the rest. I escalated the pressure subtly. Using Shade's access, I sent a follow-up email from Claire's account to the chair, accidentally copied to the entire department. I deeply regret any perception of impropriety and am committed to cooperating fully with the investigation. It was worded to sound like Claire, her polished academic tone, but it was a confession she hadn't written. The fallout was immediate. Colleagues distanced themselves, students whispered in hallways, and Claire's reputation, her pride, began to crumble. She came home that night, her eyes red, and locked herself in our bedroom. I heard her crying through the door, and for a moment, I felt a twinge of guilt. But then I remembered the motel photos, her laughter with Daniel, the lies she'd fed me for months. The guilt faded. Daniel wasn't spared either. His email, also sent by Shade, admitted to leveraging his influence to secure Claire a guest lecture spot, a breach of ethics that stung his ego-driven career. His colleagues, once charmed by his charisma, turned cold. A student group he advised dropped him as their mentor, citing concerns about professionalism. I learned through Tom that Daniel had confronted Claire, accusing her of sending the emails, their affair fracturing under the weight of mutual suspicion. I didn't care who took the blame. I wanted them both to feel the consequences. At home, Claire's unraveling was palpable. She stopped sleeping, her eyes shadowed, her hands trembling as she poured coffee. She tried to talk to me once, late at night, her voice breaking. Nate, if I haven't been myself lately, I'm sorry. It's just work, the pressure, you know? I looked at her, searching for the woman I'd loved, but all I saw was a stranger hiding behind excuses. We're fine, Claire, I said, my voice steady. Just focus on you. She nodded, relieved, thinking I was clueless. I let her believe it. The final blow came a week later. The college suspended both Claire and Daniel pending the investigation's outcome. The news spread like wildfire, amplified by a follow-up article from the journalist, now naming them explicitly after a leaked HR memo, another of Shade's creations. Claire's students stopped emailing her. Her colleagues stopped inviting her to meetings, and her beloved career teetered on the edge. Daniel faced similar ostracism, his conference invitations canceled, his reputation in tatters. I watched it unfold from the sidelines, my role invisible, my anger a quiet flame. But the revenge wasn't complete without a personal reckoning. I waited until a Saturday when Lily was at a friend's house. Claire was in the garden, her hands in the soil, trying to find solace in the routine she loved. I approached her, the manila envelope from Tom in my hand. Claire, I said, my voice calm but cold, we need to talk. She looked up, dirt smudged on her cheek, her eyes wary. What's wrong? I handed her the envelope. Open it. Her fingers trembled as she pulled out the photos, the emails, the timeline. Her face drained of color, her breath catching. Nate, where did you get this? Does it matter? I said, stepping closer. You lied to me. For months. You betrayed me, Lily, everything we built. And now your career's falling apart. And you're wondering how it happened. She shook her head, tears welling. Nate, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake, I swear. I didn't mean. Don't. I cut her off. Don't insult me with excuses. You chose him. You chose this. She sobbed, clutching the photos, but I wasn't done. The emails, Claire. The ones you sent. The investigation. The article. That was me. I made sure everyone knows what you did. I made sure you'd lose what you love most. Her eyes widened, horror replacing guilt. You did this? Nate, how could you? How could I? I laughed, bitter and low. You broke our family. You don't get to play the victim. She collapsed onto the garden bench, her body shaking. I stood over her, the weight of my words sinking in. I'm not divorcing you, I said. Not yet. I want you to live with this, to wake up every day knowing what you've lost. And I want you to look at Lily and know you risked her happiness for him. I walked away, leaving her in the garden, the envelopes scattered at her feet. The days that followed were quiet, the house a battlefield of silence. Claire moved through it like a ghost, her spirit broken, her career in ruins. I didn't gloat. There was no joy in it. I'd wanted her to feel the pain she'd caused, and she did. But it didn't fill the hole in my chest, didn't erase the betrayal. I focused on Lily, shielding her from the worst. I told her mommy was stressed about work, that things would get better. I don't know if she believed me, but she clung to me, her trust a lifeline. Claire tried to rebuild, applying for jobs at other colleges, but the scandal followed her, her applications met with polite rejections. Daniel left the state, his career equally shattered, and I heard through Tom that he blamed Claire for everything. Their affair had cost them both everything they'd valued. Months later, I sat in my office, staring at a photo of Claire and me from our wedding day. I didn't know if I could forgive her, if we could rebuild. The revenge had been cruel, precise, but it hadn't healed me. It had only leveled the playing field, leaving us both scarred. I thought about Lily, about the future, about whether love could survive this kind of wreckage. I didn't have answers, but I had time. And for now, that was enough.